Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's public meeting for the Everglades National Park Wilderness Stewardship Plan. We'll get started in about 1 or 2 minutes as we wait for a few more people to roll into the meeting. All right, thank you for joining us. My name is Danielle Laley. I am a planner with the National Park Service based out of Denver, Colorado, and I will be facilitating the meeting today. Before I hand things over to park staff for welcoming remarks and the presentation, I'm going to run through a few logistics. In the next few slides, we're going to orient you to the Teams Live environment. If you haven't joined a Teams Live meeting before, the interface can look a little bit different than regular Teams. So next slide, please. All right, so first in the top right corner, that is your Q&A box. We're going to have a question and answer session during the meeting today at the end after the presentation. So if you have questions that come up during the presentation, feel free to open up that box, drop your questions in. They'll be sent to our team. We have a few folks working in the background who are gathering up those questions. They're going to organize them by theme and topic so we can answer as many of them as possible. So at any time, feel free to drop questions or comments into the Q&A box. Next slide, please. All right, if you need to adjust your sound, you can do that in the bottom left corner of your screen, and then in the bottom right corner, if you'd like captioning, there are closed captions provided by the Teams environment, so you can click that button there. As a note, we are recording this presentation today. We will add captions and make the presentation available to the public on the NPS public comment website. Next slide, please. All right, last, I'm going to give a brief overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to provide you an introduction to the park and the park wilderness area. We're going to discuss the need for this wilderness stewardship plan. We're going to cover desired conditions and management strategies. Those have been drafted by our team and they're out for your review. And then we'll discuss your critical role in this planning process and how you can provide comments and questions to the planning team. Before we go into the presentation, I'm going to hand over the microphone to the Superintendent of Everglades National Park, Pedro Ramos, for some welcoming remarks. So next slide, please, and Pedro, take it away.
And that would be me. Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Danielle. We've done it again, a second one of the day, and I hear that technology is going to be just fine for us again this time around. We did great this morning. I want to first welcome everybody that's joined us for this meeting. Thank you for taking the time. This is very important work for us here at Everglades National Park. I want to thank the National Park Service team, not only the folks that have been working really hard to get us to this point today, but also everybody that has over now some years worked hard to get this product in the shape that it is today as we bring it out to the public for public input. Everglades National Park is the largest wilderness area east of the Rocky Mountains, believe it or not, and it has never had a wilderness management plan. It was designated wilderness back in 1978 by the Congress of the United States, yet the park has never had a plan that guides the staff as to how to manage it. It doesn't mean that we have been blindly managing the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Wilderness Area. We have relied on law and policy and of course on some other documents that have provided guidance over the years, but nothing that will focus and that will bring that guidance that we're looking for like the document that I know will come out of the effort that we're making together with members of the public that will hopefully continue to participate through the public period. The fact that the park has never had a wilderness plan, coupled with also the fact that Everglades National Park may be the most intervened with wilderness area, perhaps in the country, highlights the importance of us all rolling our sleeves and getting this work done. Everglades National Park is the subject of a tremendous amount of restoration work that has been taking place now for a couple of decades. We refer to it as Everglades restoration, the largest ecosystem restoration work ever done in our country, and some people say the world. That work will bring massive amounts of new water that the park has been deprived of for many years, and it will transform the landscape over time. Research has been ongoing throughout that entire time. There may be few places that have been researched as much as Everglades National Park, so that we can be informed in our restoration work that we are doing. We are constantly getting into the resource to remove species of animals and plants that continue to take over the landscape. And we also stay very busy prescribing fire throughout the landscape to keep it as healthy as it can possibly be. Last year alone, we burned something like 100,000 acres in Everglades National Park alone. When you think about our location, we're surrounded by millions of people, 8 or 10 million people down here in South Florida that at some point or another are interested in coming into the park and using it for recreation, as they should. This is their park, not our park, just because we wear this badge or patch on our shoulder. And so, for all those reasons, I'm really excited that we're here today, very proud of the work that the team has done so far in bringing us to this point. And I'm, again, grateful that we may have some folks online that are looking to engage and give us some input as we move forward and before we make any final decisions on this plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sabrina Diaz, our wonderful Deputy Superintendent. Please take it from here, Sabrina.
Thanks, Pedro, and appreciate the warm welcome. Good evening, everybody. Really excited to have you on the call tonight to help inform our wilderness stewardship planning effort. I've worked at Everglades National Park off and on for the last 20 years, and I will be the first to remark on how truly unique and special this place is. Next slide, please. As the first national park designated for the protection of biological resources, Everglades National Park is the only place in the United States jointly designated as an International Biosphere Reserve, a World Heritage Site, and a wetland of international importance. At 1.5 million acres in size, the park contains a vast ecosystem of wetland, sloughs and prairies, tropical hardwood hammocks, pine rocklands, extensive mangrove estuaries, and Florida Bay with its expansive seagrass meadows. This vast ecosystem is the largest subtropical wilderness area in North America, and as you heard Pedro mention before, the largest legislated wilderness area east of the Rocky Mountains. Next slide, please. The purpose of Everglades National Park, as determined by its enabling legislation, is to preserve the largest subtropical wilderness in the nation, a vast natural area in the southern Everglades and Florida Bay known throughout the world for its unparalleled ecological values, natural hydrological conditions, vibrant cultural heritage, and unique recreational and educational opportunities. Next slide, please. In 1978, Congress designated 1.3 million acres of wilderness in Everglades National Park. The Marjory Stoneman Douglas Wilderness covers nearly 86% of the park. Today, the National Park Service manages 97% of Everglades National Park wilderness, including submerged marine lands. Next slide, please. So why are we doing this work? Sorry, I had a delay on my end there. Pedro mentioned a little bit of why we have this plan moving forward, and the need for it is to guide the preservation, management, and use of wilderness, improve conditions in areas where there may be unacceptable levels of impacts on wilderness character, provide opportunities for and encourage public use and enjoyment, and to protect the cultural and natural resources within these areas. And with that information, I'll turn it back over to Danielle.
Thanks, Sabrina. Now we're going to introduce you to the project story map. And while we switch to screen sharing the story map, PJ can go ahead with that. I'll briefly explain what we're going to be showing you. In the story map, we give you some background information about the park's wilderness areas. We present the draft, desired conditions, and preliminary management strategies that we are asking you to review and comment on. So I see we've got the story map up on the screen. So I'm going to pass the microphone to PJ Walker now. PJ, if you don't mind introducing yourself first.
Thanks, Danielle. Hello, everyone. My name is PJ Walker, and I am an environmental protection specialist and the regional wilderness coordinator for the NPS South Atlantic Gulf Regional Office. We are excited to share this story map with you and receive your feedback on the included topics. There are a couple of different ways to navigate through the information. You can simply scroll just like you would down any other web page. Or if you are only interested in a particular area or topic, you can click on the corresponding tab at the top of the page to jump to a particular section. The first section provides an introduction to Everglades National Park and an overview of the project, much of which was covered earlier in the PowerPoint. At the bottom of this section is a Respond Here button. These are placed at strategic locations throughout the story map, primarily associated with sections we would like your feedback on. However, each of these buttons will take you to the same location. We'll provide more direction on where the link leads and how to comment after we go through the story map. Comments may be submitted for each section, or you can submit them all at once after reviewing the story map. Just note that you will need to log in each time you submit additional comments. This section provides further details regarding the plan's purpose and need. The plan is intended to provide long-term direction for preserving wilderness character, which is the primary legal mandate for any wilderness area. The plan will provide updated guidance and associated actions to ensure that a variety of high-quality visitor experiences are available to encourage public use and enjoyment of wilderness. This includes guidance to ensure that necessary recreation facilities that support visitor experiences, such as camping platforms, trails, and navigational signage, are maintained in a manner that avoids or minimizes adverse impacts to wilderness character. The plan will also provide guidance for managing natural and cultural resources, as well as research projects and other administrative activities and facilities in wilderness. This section provides a more in-depth overview of wilderness at Everglades National Park. First, I want to point out a couple of links underlined in blue on this page that will be helpful to further understand wilderness at the park, as well as the qualities that make up wilderness character. The wilderness character narrative is a qualitative description of what is unique and special about the Marjory Stoneman Douglas wilderness, broken down by each of the wilderness character qualities. You can either read the full document or view a summary on the park's wilderness webpage, which is the second link. At a minimum, I would recommend you review the park's wilderness webpage before reviewing the desired conditions on the next tab, as they are similarly broken down by each of the wilderness character qualities. The website will provide you with a basic understanding of these qualities. As you scroll through this section, you'll become familiar with the various categories of wilderness found within Everglades National Park. Each category is a different stage in the legislative process for wilderness designation. However, by Park Service policy, all categories of wilderness are to be managed to preserve wilderness character until the legislative process is complete. Until that time, management decisions will be made in expectation of eventual wilderness designation. However, I do want to point out a couple of categories that are somewhat uncommon. The Marjory Stoneman Douglas Wilderness is unique in that nearly 1/3 of its acreage is submerged marine land wilderness. While the seafloor that underlies coastal park waters is designated wilderness, the water column itself is not. This provision allows for the continued use of motorboats in these areas, provided they do not impact the underlying wilderness. However, facilities installed in the submerged lands to support visitor experiences and resource protection, such as camping platforms and navigational signage, do have an impact on wilderness character. In addition to the designated wilderness areas, the legislation passed in 1978 also identified areas as potential wilderness. These are areas that possess wilderness characteristics which would normally qualify them for designation, but they contain temporary incompatible conditions which prevent them from being immediately designated as wilderness. For example, the area may have derelict infrastructure such as old roadbeds or utility lines, or in the case of the Hole in the Donut, require ecological restoration. Potential wilderness is to be managed to preserve wilderness character to the extent incompatible conditions allow, and should be converted to designated wilderness when those conditions are no longer present. In total, approximately 97% of Everglades National Park is managed to preserve wilderness character, either by law or policy, all of which is included in the project area for this plan. However, the project area also includes specific non-wilderness areas that serve as gateways to wilderness, where visitors can receive wilderness information and interpretation. To this point, I've mainly provided background and context for the planning effort. Going forward is the primary information on which we are seeking feedback. As part of this planning effort, park staff drafted desired conditions for the park's wilderness lands and waters. These statements will help park managers answer the question, what are we trying to achieve? Desired conditions are articulated for each category of wilderness found within Everglades National Park and are centered around each of the 5 qualities of wilderness character. These qualities come directly from language in the Wilderness Act. I'll touch on them briefly here, but for further context, remember to review the park's website for more information on the wilderness character qualities and their relationship to wilderness at Everglades National Park. First up are desired conditions for the untrammeled quality. A trammel is something that controls, hinders, or impedes free action. So the untrammeled quality is about wilderness areas being wild and free to exist without human intervention. A desired condition would be for any actions that manipulate the biophysical environment be avoided unless determined to be necessary for the long-term preservation of wilderness character. This idea of managing with humility and restraint is a key tenet of wilderness stewardship, but is oftentimes complicated due to the necessary large-scale restoration efforts in South Florida. Up next is the natural quality. Wilderness areas are to be managed to preserve their natural conditions. Park staff have identified several desired conditions for this quality related to climate change, native species, water resources, air quality, and fire management. The undeveloped quality is about the intent of wilderness areas to be undeveloped without permanent improvement or human habitation. Desired conditions for this quality speak to maintaining an undeveloped landscape by minimizing installations and the use of motorized equipment within wilderness areas. Maintenance of these conditions is largely tied to the minimum requirement concept, which first evaluates the necessity of a proposed project and then identifies the minimum activity to accomplish the necessary goals of the project. Next, wilderness has outstanding opportunities for solitude or primitive and unconfined type of recreation. This quality is a mouthful, but it essentially means that wilderness areas provide settings that support outstanding opportunities for people to get away from modern society in order to commune with nature while engaging in primitive forms of recreation, such as hiking, kayaking, fishing, and wildlife viewing. Park staff have identified several desired conditions intended to preserve wilderness settings and describe the type of experiences visitors should expect. Finally, wilderness areas may also contain other features of value that are integral to understanding the character of a wilderness. Desired conditions were developed to ensure that cultural features and stories that contribute to the significance of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas Wilderness are interpreted, protected, and preserved. This includes maintaining close communication with all relevant tribal nations to interpret their relationship with the land. Note that the desired conditions for designated wilderness also apply to all other categories, but each following category has one or two additional desired conditions, including the preservation of natural conditions and opportunities for solitude in submerged wilderness areas, the intent to eliminate non-conforming uses in potential wilderness to facilitate conversion to designated wilderness, and direction to seek wilderness designation for proposed wilderness lands. Now I'm going to pass the baton to Daniel Noon, the Chief of Planning and Environmental Compliance for Everglades National Park, to introduce you to some of the strategies being considered for the plan.
Thank you, PJ. As PJ said, I'm Daniel Noon. I'm the Chief of Planning and Compliance at Everglades National Park. I've been here for about a year and really enjoying my experience here at the park and enjoying the wilderness here as well. I will go over some of the park-wide strategies for the Wilderness Stewardship Plan next, as well as some district level strategic management strategies as well. Introduction to the preliminary management strategies. To meet the draft purpose and need of the Wilderness Stewardship Plan, the National Park Service would pursue a variety of strategies and concepts designed to preserve wilderness character, enhance recreation access, and improve visitor experience while protecting park resources. We would like to hear from you regarding these proposed strategies, as well as any additional ideas you have that address these issues. Your feedback will help park staff revise the strategies into proposed concepts. When the proposed concepts are developed, they will undergo a thorough environmental analysis. At that time, we will present alternatives for management and ask for your participation again to further refine the strategies. After this process is complete, an alternative can be selected and implemented by the park. This story map first describes strategies that would be applied park-wide, then strategies organized by park district. Visitor use and experience. The National Park Service would seek to enhance the diversity and quality of visitors' wilderness experiences. Future park-wide actions include the following measures. As existing land and water trails and trail infrastructure are modified or new trails are developed, the National Park Service would implement appropriate accessibility improvements to the extent practicable. Improve trailhead signage to include information about the trail conditions and difficulty that would enable visitors of all abilities to make informed decisions about which inland and water trails to use. Improve web-based social media, printed media, and visitor center resources regarding opportunities for persons with disabilities, and implement indicators, thresholds, and strategies to manage the visitor capacities. Front country and backcountry facilities to support wilderness access and use. The National Park Service would seek to enhance the quality of front country facilities that support wilderness access, education, and orientation. Specific strategies are provided in the district level descriptions. For example, for signage, the National Park Service would develop and implement a sign plan that includes standards for signs in wilderness to ensure uniform appearance. When developing these standards, we would look for opportunities to minimize the impact of signs on wilderness character. The plan would address boundary markers, trailhead signs, trail markers, wilderness campsite signs, waterway channel markers, and aids to navigation. Trails and waterways. The National Park Service would seek to enhance the trail network to better facilitate access into wilderness and support opportunities for primitive recreation. Specific strategies are provided in the district level descriptions as well. Campsites and campsite maintenance. The National Park Service would seek to enhance wilderness camping opportunities. If a designated campsite does not meet established standards, or if there is another environmentally preferred location, it may be relocated unless the relocation would cause a greater overall impact on the area. When considering potential new areas for campsite relocation, we would use specific wilderness campsite selection criteria. A campsite may be relocated if it is necessary for natural and cultural resource protection or for the enhancement of the wilderness experience. Campsites impacted by climate change may also be relocated and would be evaluated on an individual basis. The type of campsite may be changed, such as a ground site to a camping platform. Appropriate compliance, consultation, and civic engagement would be conducted if a campsite is relocated or a new campsite is established. Natural and cultural resource management. The National Park Service would continue to protect and manage natural and cultural resources according to the pertinent laws, policies, and plans, using methods that are consistent with the preservation of wilderness character and values. The National Park Service would continue to participate in and encourage ongoing partnerships to enhance natural and cultural resource protection. The National Park Service would explore shared stewardship opportunities with Indigenous people. Fire management. We would continue to implement the 2015 Fire Management Plan to maintain and enhance wilderness character by managing fire as a natural ecological process and improving the long-term naturalness of the area, which includes employing a range of prescribed fire techniques as well as a variety of fire management strategies to manage unplanned wildfires. Invasive plant management. The National Park Service would continue to implement the 2010 South Florida and Caribbean Parks Exotic Plant Management Plan to maintain and enhance wilderness character by reducing the impact of invasive plants on native plant and animal communities. Invasive non-native animal management. We would continue to work with partner agencies and non-governmental organizations to understand the impact that invasive non-native animals have on the park's natural system and identify and implement effective management strategies to minimize their impact on park resources. Restoration and continued management of restored areas. Park staff would continue to conduct small and large-scale restoration projects that enhance the natural and undeveloped qualities of wilderness character. These projects include, but are not limited to, fish passage projects under roads and within developed areas of the park, restoration of disturbed sites to natural conditions, restoration of extirpated native species or redistribution of native species, and management removal of invasive non-native plants and animals from large areas. Preserving and restoring the Greater Everglades ecosystem is a long-standing cooperative effort. There are many ongoing and planned restoration projects outside of the park that are independent of and complementary of this wilderness stewardship plan. We would continue to work with cooperating agencies to minimize adverse impacts on wilderness character from external restoration projects. Research and monitoring. The National Park Service would encourage and continue to support appropriate scientific activities in wilderness. Research and monitoring installations located in the wilderness would be removed when determined to be no longer essential. Existing research and monitoring installations would be identified and evaluated for removal. In addition, we would continue to monitor wilderness character and look for ways to improve monitoring. Administrative facilities and activities. Consistent with National Park Service management policies, administrative facilities and activities would be allowed in wilderness only if they are determined to be the minimum requirement necessary to carry out wilderness management objectives and are specifically addressed in this wilderness stewardship plan or other planning documents. Related to this is the minimum requirement concept. All proposed management actions in wilderness would be consistent with the minimum requirement concept. This concept is a documented process used to determine if administrative actions, projects, or programs undertaken by the National Park Service or others authorized by the service and affecting wilderness character are necessary, and if so, how to minimize impacts. The proposed actions in the Wilderness Stewardship Plan will include the minimum requirement concept. Tribal relationships. The National Park Service recognizes that the continued relationship between the Indigenous Americans and the landscape and resources of Everglades National Park is as much as a part of the park's wilderness character as the biodiversity of this rich and unique ecosystem. This plan would advance the park's commitment to honoring Everglades homeland concepts, enhancing relationships between the agency and tribal nations, and collaborating on natural and cultural resource stewardship of the wilderness areas of Everglades National Park. Traditional tribal activities. The National Park Service would continue to encourage appropriate uses in wilderness by associated tribes, including but not limited to arts, crafts, social institutions, subsistence gathering, and practicing religious ceremonies. We would continue to accommodate access and ceremonial use of Indigenous peoples' sacred sites to the extent practicable and avoid affecting the physical integrity of such sacred sites. This plan does not propose changes to access rights and protection of sacred sites in wilderness areas. Now I'll go through a couple of examples of some district level management strategies and focusing on the Flamingo and Gulf Coast area. The other areas for management strategies include East Everglades, Pine Island, and Shark Valley. We'll focus this evening on Flamingo and Gulf Coast. Visitor use and experience. The National Park Service would seek to increase opportunities for solitude and primitive and unconfined recreation in the Flamingo and Florida Bay districts by enhancing wilderness recreation opportunities, as well as wilderness information and interpretation. Within the story map, you'll see these areas that you can highlight, which will expand in the point of view. For example, Flamingo and Florida Bay are highlighted as such. I will give some additional examples further into the presentation. Visitor information and interpretation. The National Park Service would enhance visitor information interpretation in these districts. Future actions include the following measures. Provide additional online interpretation and education opportunities for boater education and permit programs. Work with partners to provide additional outreach at venues in the local community, and to enhance wilderness paddling experiences, provide information about the Everglades Paddling Trail as an alternative to the Wilderness Waterway. Visitors would be encouraged to discover and explore a variety of other paddling options on their own. Front country facilities to support wilderness access and use. The National Park Service would enhance front country facilities. Future actions may include the following measures. Design and establish accessible launch opportunities and improvements at the Hells Bay and Noble Hammock launch platforms and at the Coot Bay Pond paddle launch site. In addition, the National Park Service would pursue partnership opportunities for additional public boating launch sites that provide access to northern Florida Bay. Campsites and campsite maintenance. Future actions include the following measures. Per the General Management Plan, build 6 additional platform campsites in Florida Bay to reduce the travel distance between campsites to a more reasonable length. The platforms would be constructed on the water near keys at Tarpon Bay, Lane River, Hoot Bay, Black Betsy Keys, Long Sound, and Crab Keys. In addition, the National Park Service would modify select campsites to be accessible. The National Park Service would also address wilderness campsites with resource degradation or ongoing impacts from climate change. Future actions include the following measures. Evaluate existing campsites for decommissioning, restoration, and potential relocation based on flooding frequency, climate change, and impacts on natural and cultural resources. Explore options to extend the boardwalk or add a new dock at Little Rabbit Key to help mitigate access challenges with routine flooding. And implement monitoring restoration efforts at North Nest Key to address visitor-caused impacts on natural resources. We encourage you to explore these and other districts when you have the opportunity and provide feedback. I want to point out an ability to print this story map as well. You may be interested in viewing the story map in another format. To do so, click up here where there's 3 dots and then click Print Preview. From there, you can print either on paper format, hard copy format, or in PDF by selecting Print. And we'll bring up a pop-up window with different selections based on your printing settings. And that concludes my part of the presentation, and I'll return it back over to Danielle.
Thanks, Daniel. So now that you've seen the project story map and we've provided you an orientation to the park's wilderness, draft desired conditions, and preliminary management strategies, it's time to explain the critical role that you, the public, have to play and how you can use it to engage with the National Park Service in the next step of the planning process. Next slide, please. First, I want to talk a little bit about the project timeline so you all know what to expect, how long the process is going to take, and where we're headed from here. On your slide, you'll see a graphic version of the different project phases. During phase 1, the initiation phase, we conducted baseline assessments, such as completing the park's wilderness character baseline assessment. We also outlined the process to complete the wilderness plan, compliance requirements, and civic engagement. We're currently in phase 2, which is to prepare the draft wilderness plan. We completed a wilderness visitor survey at the park, and perhaps some of you attending today participated in that survey. In addition, an interdisciplinary team has developed draft desired conditions and preliminary management strategies. Those are what we showed you on the story map. A team is also developing indicators, thresholds, and visitor capacity related to visitor use management and an extent necessary determination. Park staff are currently conducting meetings with tribal nations, and we are currently holding public meetings on elements of the draft wilderness stewardship plan. That's where we are now. After these meetings are finished and after the review period is over, we will incorporate your feedback and revise the draft plan. Then we'll enter into phase 3, which is the compliance review and completing the plan. So we'll prepare the environmental compliance documentation, we'll conduct civic engagement again and complete consultation, we'll finalize compliance, and we'll finalize the wilderness stewardship plan for the park. Next slide, please. Now, as the slide states, we want to hear from you. The public comment period is open through March 31st. So for the next month or so, you are welcome to submit your comments and feedback in several ways, including the project's homepage, which is included here on the slide. We will have someone from our staff drop that link in the chat for you all as well. You're also welcome to mail in comments to Everglades administrative offices. If you're going to do so, please direct any posted mail to Superintendent Attention Wilderness Stewardship Plan, Everglades National Park, 40001 State Road 9336, Homestead, Florida 33034. And if you are going to mail in comments, your letter needs to be postmarked by March 31st. Next slide, please. We've mentioned many times how important it is for us to hear from you, so we want to make sure you know how to do that. We have a website called the National Park Service Planning, Environment, and Public Comment Site. For short, we use the acronym PEPC or PEPC. You can reach our project homepage at the website you see on the screen, parkplanning.mps.gov/ever-WSP. And if you go to this project homepage, on the left side, you'll see a link to click on called Open for Comment. When you click that link, you'll see the next splash page. There's going to be a parentheses 1, which means that a document is open for comment. Next slide, please. All right, so now you're on the documents open for comment page, and you'll see the document that is open for comment, which is the story map. So you click on that link. Next slide, please. And this is where you see the Comment Now button. If you click on the Comment Now button, that takes you to a page where you can submit comments. There's a lot of clicking involved in this, but hopefully it's relatively straightforward. So when you click on that link, it opens up a page where you enter in your comment. I will tell you that you do have to enter some information, your name and contact information. And that information is internal to the MPS. It's kept secure on the website, which is why we use this website to keep all that information secure. Next slide, please. Now, on the public comment page, there are a few key questions that we're hoping you will respond to. The first question seen on the slide is, are the draft desired conditions in alignment with experiences that are most important to you and that you want future visitors to have? The second question, related, what barriers get in the way of visiting Everglades wilderness areas? And what barriers prevent you from achieving your desired experiences while in wilderness? Next slide. The third question, what are your suggestions for refinements of the strategies presented in the story map? The fourth question is, what other strategies should be considered and why? What do we not have listed that you think we should consider? Next slide. The fifth question is open-ended. We invite you to share any other ideas you have for the Wilderness Stewardship Plan with the project team. So those are the 5 questions that we have on PEPC for you to respond to. Of course, the fifth question here is open-ended. Next slide, please. So now we're going to set aside some time for question and answers. If you have any questions that are going to help inform your comments or clarify anything for you in this wilderness stewardship planning process, we'd love to take those. So this would be a great time to put them into the Q&A box, and we'll be organizing those in the background. A couple of questions that did come in earlier that we can respond to. Will this meeting be recorded? And yes, this presentation will be recorded. We will be posting a recording onto that public comment website, the PEPC site, as soon as we've added closed captioning and made sure that it is compliant with Section 508. So there will be a recording available to the public in probably a week or two, given the work that we need to do on it. All right, so now would be a great time if you have any questions for us or comments for the planning team to drop them into that Q&A box. It should be in the top right corner of your screen. All right, so we do have a question that just came in. Mark, I'm going to pass this to you, and then you can also ask for assistance from other folks on the that we have here on the park staff if you'd like assistance with it. And the question is, what about the Gladesman culture?
Sure, I can address that a little bit. My name is Mark Vedas. I'm one of the archaeologists for South Florida Parks. The Gladesman culture, we do have a little bit in this. We have a larger interpretation plan that we are working on incorporating some of the Gladesman culture as well. I'm not 100% sure exactly what you're asking with this. It is very broad, but we do want to make sure that the Glademan culture is represented within this plan, as well as the interpretation that we put out. So I hope that's what the answer that you were looking for. If not, please let me know and we can clarify that.
Thanks, Mark. In the interest of not having us sit here in silence forever, I'm going to give you all about 45 seconds to see if you can get your questions into the chat, or if you can't articulate it well enough, let us know that you're thinking about it, and we'll wait for you. But we do want to make sure that we are making good use of everyone's time.
And again, Danielle, people have until March 31st to send in the comments. So hopefully plenty of opportunity to digest all of this. I know that it's a lot of information. And hopefully folks will take the time to review and tell us what they think.
All right, we did get 2 additional questions or comments that came in. Let's see, a question, Mark, if you're ready, on the same vein, what are your plans to incorporate the Gladesmen?
Sure, yeah. Incorporation of the Gladesmen within this particular wilderness plan is just to increase the opportunities for interpretation. Other than that, we have some other interpretation plans that are moving forward to hopefully update some of the signs that we have, as well as put new ones out. That's still in the planning process, though. Otherwise, the Gladesman culture, we definitely want to hear from the descendants and those who still, airboat and use this area regularly, which is why we have these public platforms. So please ask us questions. That's what we're here for. Other than that, that's all I really have. So.
Great, thanks, Mark. Comment just came in from someone who spent a lot of time in the wilderness, said keep conserving the wilderness and biodiversity out there. Thanks for that comment. That is certainly part of what we want to do in this plan and in general for the national park. And then we had another, let's see. And then there is another question about private airboaters. So question, what about private airboaters? So would PJ like to take that question and then pass it to anyone else who can assist?
I'm trying my best. Yes, the 1989 Expansion Act did allow for continued use of private airboat operations in East Everglades in specific areas. And if you go through the story map and you're looking at those areas, look in the East Everglades section, there is a wilderness category called proposed potential wilderness. That is the general area that we were considering, both there and the non-wilderness area that's to the northwest of there. And Pedro Sabrina can kind of help me with this, or Daniel, if you're aware, but within that act, we mentioned that there would be a permit system that would eventually be developed, which I'm not sure if it ever actually was developed, but those activities would continue per the guidelines that were outlined within the 1989 Act. Yep.
Thanks, PJ. All right, let's see if any more questions have come in. All right, I'm going to start wrapping up a little bit. That makes for some last minute thoughts. Next slide, please, Louisa. All right, so a reminder to please submit your formal public comments to either the National Park Service website or by mail. The mailing address is available on Pepsi. All right, so I did manage to spur more questions. The question is, and this is going to be, let's see, PJ, you can start and then you can pass it to whoever you'd like to. So there's a question, are there plans for East Everglades such as permits? Or maybe permits is a separate question.
Yeah, there are plans for East Everglades, and the story map that we kind of went over, Daniel only described some of the strategy we're considering, mainly just went over Flamingo, but East Everglades is another category on there that has a variety of different strategies that would be considered, including additional paddling opportunities and things like that, and camping opportunities in East Everglades that aren't currently being offered. As far as the permit system, for the follow-up question there, personally, I don't know what the status of that is. I don't know if Pedro or Sabrina, if you are aware of how the park may or not be planning to deal with the private airboat permitting system.
So, the law is very clear in that it gives people that were using and airboating in the park at the time that, or prior to the time when the law passed, that they would continue to have the right throughout their lifetime to use airboats in that area. And we have honored that. We intend to continue honoring that. We haven't engaged in proceeding with any permitting system at this point in time. It just frankly hasn't been something that we have prioritized because we understand what the law is. And the law is that, again, the folks that were using that area shall continue to use it. And we intend to work with those people. We, over the years, I have personally been in touch with the Airboat Association and other groups that use that area, and they know very clearly how I feel about it as a superintendent, and I think that they're comfortable with the fact that there's a clear and common understanding here of what our responsibility is under the law.
Thanks, Pedro. There was a then clarifying question, I think, still in the same line of questioning, compared to, looking at Big Cypress for ORV use. That was like clarifying, like, is there any similar plans for what's going on in Big Cypress?
So, this meeting is about Everglades National Park. Big Cypress is another unit of the National Park Service down here in South Florida, and it is going through its own backcountry access management plan. I understand that they're making a lot of progress. They're going through their own NEPA process through it, and when that's done, the trails that are already existing will be affirmed, and trails that are not yet open will get the green light to go through the rulemaking process, and eventually after that become open trails. So I'm really happy with the progress that's been made next door at Big Cypress with the ORV trails. And again, much like I mentioned about Everglades National Park and the responsibility that we have to honor airboat access in East Everglades, we have a responsibility at Big Cypress National Preserve to continue allowing off-road vehicle trails to be used by folks to go hunting or to do whatever it is that they have traditionally accessed the preserve for in a sustainable way that is compatible with our mission of conservation and our mission of providing access and recreation for people that love that place.
All right, there is similar question in similar lines of thinking. Will it be like the Big Cypress in East Everglades?
What was the question again? I can't read it here.
Yeah, yeah. The question is, will it be like the Big Cypress in East Everglades?
Will it be linked to Big Cypress?
Like
Big Cypress in East Everglades?
Yep.
Well, I mean, we're talking about off-road vehicles. When I answer the question, the last question, I was mostly thinking about swamp buggies in terms of ORVs, but airboats are also off-road vehicles. And we do have an area in Big Cypress National Preserve, Zone 4. I'm sure that the person asking the question is very aware of this. And we do have a system of designated trails at Big Cypress National Preserve for airboats. That is not what we are intending to do or expect to do at East Everglades. I don't know if that answers the question. I'm digging here because there's not a lot of context to the question. So I'm just digging a little bit and assuming it's just two different ways of providing access to different units of the National Park Service. Access will continue to take place at Big Cypress National Preserve in airboat country. It is being considered as part of the backcountry access management plan, and folks can access that plan very easily as well in Pepsi. And at Everglades National Park, we continue to provide for that access in the way that people have been enjoying it now for decades since the East Everglades law passed into effect.
Thanks, Pedro. All right. There are no more new questions coming in, but I am going to pause. I'm going to set a timer for 60 seconds and see if we get any more questions. This is a great discussion. And if no new questions come in at that point, then we'll start wrapping up. But we'll give folks a little more time.
And I will say that I love the folks at the Airboat Association. Somebody said, please contact them for an update. They know how to find me if they have questions. I know many of them. I'm sure that I would be contacted, and I'm always happy to speak with them or anybody else.
All right, no new questions came in, so I'm going to start wrap up again. So as a reminder, please submit any questions and comments either on the project homepage on your screen or by mail by March 31st. We welcome all your questions and comments today, but if you want them submitted for official consideration by the planning team, they do need to go either on the official NPS website or be postmarked to the park. So we really appreciate your time today. By the insightful questions that people have been asking, we can tell that you're here to learn and understand, and that's a great experience to be part of. So thank you everyone for attending and asking your questions. If you have further questions, there are 2 more public meetings. They are both on March 12th, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. The exact times for those public meetings and the links to them are on the project homepage. So please share that information widely so that people can come and hear about our wilderness stewardship planning process. So I'm going to turn it over back to Pedro for any closing remarks you have. So thank you, Pedro.
Well, thank you, Danielle, and to all of the presenters. We did it again for the second time today, and technology cooperated. That's actually surprising. I haven't been in meetings like this in a while that I haven't had a glitch. So, thanks to the technology heavens. Thanks to folks that participated today. We really appreciate your interest in Everglades National Park. This is important work for us, and let's go have a nice evening and get some rest. And I'll see the team tonight or tomorrow back at work. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, Pedro. We are officially ending this meeting. Please, again, go to the project homepage to review, find the link for the story map, ask questions, submit comments, and share information about these public meetings with your friends, family, associates, and everybody else you know. So have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.